welcome to a little edition of Do Hard Stuff with, is it Dr. Patel or is it just Santosh?
Just Santosh. Just Santosh.
Well, for those that don't know, a little bit of an old joke between us about being Dr. Patel. You even threw that on stage at, was it Dykema you
I
did
I,
that?
I, th- I thought you'd like that one. I thought you'd like that one. Yeah.
Toss me. I used to be mistaken for a doctor. Hey, well, Santosh is the founder, co-founder, and manager. Do you call yourself manager, CEO? What do you call yourself?
In the startup space, you kind of wear all hats, but title-wise, I just go by president, co-founder.
President, co-founder of Complete Specialty Solutions. That was in 2018. He is passionate about helping dentists and groups and DSOs turn their office into a multi-specialty practice. I love this. He says when patients are referred out for specialty service, they ask, "Can I do that here?" And he wants you to say, "Yes, you can." A healthcare professional with over 14 years of startup and operational experience, along with extensive success in team building. And I also know that you are, most people probably don't know this, you are a guacamole connoisseur.
Becoming my claim to fame, for sure. Yeah.
You did win, right? I'm
I
just
did.
making
I
sure you
did.
did.
I did.
Yeah,
I
okay,
did.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes
But
that lady, what's her name? Eileen, she goes a little
like,
crazy. She
yeah.
says that she won. Just not so sure I believe all that, right? The votes are in. That one has been done and
Yeah.
dusted. Hey, well, man, it's great to have you. How you been?
I love it, JW. I appreciate you having me. Yeah, I'm doing well, doing very well.
So, man, I'm going to get right to it. I think
Yeah.
the thing that I like to talk about here, it's interesting. I love it when people say, as an entrepreneur, you own your own business. Man, it must be nice. You work the hours that you want. You get to take off whenever you want to. You can go drink beer by the pool when you want to. That's a little bit far from the truth. And so, my question to you is, what is the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur, business startup, co-founder? What is that thing that's hard?
JW, I would say the probably the most challenging part is just always constantly looking for problems to solve, right? Like within your own business, you're always constantly looking for a problem to solve, but then you need to manage the time to actually solve those problems, right? So I enjoy the problem solving side of it actually. That's the part that's great. But sometimes it's a rabbit hole, right? So as you open up one opportunity, you dive deep into it, you then kind of uncover another opportunity. And so, yeah, there's, I think, this iceberg kind of philosophy of everything is great when everyone can see the iceberg and all the work and maybe the luxuries that it provides in terms of being an entrepreneur. But the grind underneath, and, I still think about 6 years ago and kind of launching this business where really the concept was there, but it wasn't really any proven success in what we were trying to accomplish from an operations angle and a full network angle. Um, Everyone loves the idea. Getting buy-in was tough. Always trying to get your first few customers to really trust and support you, especially coming from outside the industry. I would say that was quite difficult. I think going through the iterations of how do you continue to build your business while staying hyper focused on the things that need to be executed, but yet being distracted by other ways to continue to grow your business, right? I think that's always probably the hardest challenge that entrepreneurs have.
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting. I used to laugh. I kind of mentioned about, it must be nice to work the hours that you want. I'm like, yeah, sometimes those hours are like 4:30 in the morning until 10 p.m. at night, right?
Yeah,
Those are
yeah,
the hours I get to choose, and I can usually choose all those. But you're right, and I'm going to guess, because I can say this about ZimWorks Support DDS, started about the same time. I've been in the dental a long time, but this company 2017, so just a little bit
right,
before. It's what I envisioned those first year or two is not what it is today. It's
right,
different, right?
right.
And I'm going to guess that you experienced the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you throw in COVID into this whole mix, right? And so just the workforce solution changes, just the market needs and dynamics change, right? So when we first started the business, the initial premise was we're going to help solo practices level the playing field so they can compete against group practices at DSOs and offer same store revenue, right? And and which we still do, right? Like for almost 40% of our portfolio is still solo two location practices. But we had this surge of group and DSO offices that came up simply because they actually wanted more and more assistance in this space. And it was really difficult when we were first launching off of solo practices, but then, group practices started to understand the immediate, value benefit of this solution. And so I think that was a pivot for us. And then we migrated from a full services business to now a component of our business is a technology where we have a SaaS platform where it's a DIY, right? We're helping other groups build their own specialty through a software that we were forced to build ourselves to
Wow.
streamline our own operations, right? And then we realized almost that Shopify concept of we need to build something to make us more efficient. And then as we build this, we realize that there's a deficiency in the market that maybe others can benefit from, right? And JW, you made the comment about the luxury of being able to just take off when you want to take off and all those things. And I've heard that comment several times about, well, entrepreneurs, you have your own business, and you don't answer to anybody, right? You don't have a boss, and you think about it, like we have several bosses. Every single one of our customers is a boss, and if we don't treat them that way in the mutual respect, right, then the business never grows. So it was a good shift to be able to understand what the world was prior to joining an entrepreneurship kind of mindset. I don't know if I could ever necessarily go back, right? But the perspective of just constantly solving problems is intriguing.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's interesting because our business does the same, right? We try to take a problem and we try to offer a solution, which is really what
Right.
selling is, right? If you really
Yeah.
boil down to any product,
Oh yeah.
it's solving a problem. And
Yep.
and I think you always have to remember that. And you're right. When you get a little prideful and boastful about your product and you forget that you need somebody to buy that from you as well, there's where you really run into the problem. Like if you think, your SaaS product or your specialty solutions or me in the team member remote virtual team business, you just need me. I'm like, no, 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 I really need you
Right.
more the other way around.
Yeah.
And I know you think the same way. You have to have that to do that. Well, one of my questions is, and it kind of falls into that, but what is the key in building relationships within your business? What do you think is that key metric that you have to do day in, day out to really build that business?
So this was a journey for me, right? So I'd never had formal sales training. I've always been an operator, and I think about all the steps A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and as an operator, even just when I worked in the hospital sector, I had to help build our financial budgets, right? And so as you're building budgets, you start to realize, well, it's great and it's easy to put something on paper, but can you live to it, right? Can you execute to it, and are you going to be held accountable and responsible for getting to that certain goal? And so then you start to have realistic expectations of yourself while still putting some stretch and a reach in there, right? And you take that same concept and going into client meetings to say, okay, well, let me first listen. Do you even need our solution? Is this something that is a priority for you? Because if it's not a priority, there's no reason to waste anybody's time right now, right? Let's go. Let's figure out what's a true need. And then once we understand that, let's be honest and genuine about what we can deliver and under promise and over deliver. And I think one of the things that, I'm sure, everyone has their own kind of mindset and perspective. And, there's groups that have a great sales engine and really hardcore in the sales and training aspect. That's just never been our philosophy. Our philosophy is, we want to make sure we're a good fit for you and you're a good fit for us. And that's how it's going to build, in a scalable manner. And that's really just been our philosophy is we don't want to jump into a relationship. We want to understand each other's goals, understand can we deliver? If we can't deliver, then let's reset that before we set some expectations. But I think sometimes expectations leads to resentment, right? So going with the mindset of this is what we can do and this is what we've been proven to do. If this meets your needs, then let's move it forward. So when it comes to how we essentially build our relationships and our trust, we go with it with the true genuine dialogue of This is who we are. We'd love to know who you are, and let's start there.
Yeah, probably a big mistake in the sales world is trying to offer them. I sold equipment for years and years, and I used to when I was training younger people to do sales. They always wanted to offer the solution before they understood the problem. They'd say, "Oh,
Right.
I need to buy a combing machine. Oh, we've got one that's going to be," without going into,
Yeah.
"Hey, how are you going to use it? What kind of field of view? What procedures are you doing?
Exactly.
Let's understand that." And then you offer a solution that matches. And I think it's the same with you, right?
Yeah.
You can't go offer, if you go on a tangent offering endodontic services as an example in your specialties, and the whole time they're going, "Oh, well, I don't even do any. I don't even want to talk about that, Santosh.
Right.
What are you talking about?
Right.
I want to talk about OMS, right, or whatever it is."
Exactly.
You have to listen and understand what that client needs. So I think it's important to be on that level ground when you talk about building relationships as well. Super important.
And that's an evolution, right? That was not how we started. And when we started, we said yes to everybody, right? So
Yeah.
anything somebody wanted when it came to, yes, we could do it. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Oh, we do that. Yes, absolutely. Right. And then you realize very quickly that does not bode well for your business, and it doesn't bode well for the customer's experience, right? So there's an element of making sure you're putting, again, you're stretching, you put yourself in a situation where you're forcing yourself to solve problems faster. But you also want to put yourself in a situation where you're successful, right? You don't want to have high churn in your business. You want to really focus on, retention of your customers and growth within your customers, same store growth within your customers. That's the right story to tell. And, I think part of that is, again, taking a step back, listening to the needs, getting buy-in from not just the person who signs the contract, but the individuals within the business that execute that role, right? So for us, we work really closely with the office managers or the COOs or the director of operations. And although the CEO or the owners, love the concept of our service, we take that then to the next layer and just go one more layer deep to make sure there's buy-in on every element of this. Again, I think when the folks who are the ones who are actually executing on the tasks are brought into that conversation, there's that level of respect that comes in to say, I appreciate you understanding my role in this, and I appreciate you engaging me so we can find a solution together. And so I think that's also helped drastically, as we've seen.
Man, I can tell you the places we've had the biggest failure is when, let's say a single practice, the doctor calls it, "Oh man, I want to get in, I want to hire some people to do this, this, and this." And we're like, "All right, let's go." And you sign everything up and you get started. And that office manager or that practice manager or that COO, whatever, they're going, what did we, who did they hire? What was this
Right.
about? And they don't have the buy-in, and therefore they don't even have a dog in the fight, if you will, to see that it be successful. Matter of fact, sometimes they sabotage it even, right? Because they're like,
Right.
"Whoa, why wasn't I brought in on this? I should have been a part of the decision." So super important, I think, to get that buy-in from, look, this is whatever you're doing, right? Not just your
Right.
business or not just my business.
Absolutely.
But look, I could keep it simple. I could say, you go buy a new car, salesperson should probably say, "Oh, hey, Santosh, are you married?" And they say, "Oh, yeah, yeah. Hey, let's show this to your wife." Right? He
Right.
wants to get the buy-in from everybody. And that's maybe a bad example, but it works. You need to make sure everybody's on the same page with what you're doing. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think we, in addition to obviously us engaging with our customers, and we do the same thing. Like we realized early on that maybe I would make a decision what I thought was best for the company, and once we went through the negotiations and contracts, and I signed in, and I bring in our team, and I realized very quickly that was a terrible decision, right? Like that they need to be brought in. They need to highlight areas where maybe we need to have some language in our contract, right? There needs to be a grid of what the responsibilities on each side, the accountability, tasks are. And then once we have kind of both sides engaged, will that take a couple weeks longer? Sure, it'll take a couple weeks longer. But will our adoption go up? Absolutely. And so, just not only for our customers, we have to do that internally for our own teams. It's just not fair to them, right? Putting ourselves back in that situation where We're not engaged on what the activity is, but yet we're expected to execute on all of it, right? And so,
Yeah, and I would also encourage people who are looking to start a business or found a business or they're partnering with somebody. You also can't wait till things are perfect, right? You
correct.
you you just need to get started.
Yeah,
Sometimes what is that? You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to start to be
start.
great. And I
Right.
think there's true. You started by saying yes to everything. We did the same thing. We were like,
Hmm.
can you handle a little, some silly role? Sure. And
Yeah.
then I was like, can we do that?
Yeah.
And you kind of started figuring it out, and pretty soon you flesh out. And I think that's just part of getting a business started.
Right.
But listening to that feedback, right? Like, hey, you guys really, y'all really kind of suck at this. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, we need to fix that. And then going in and trying to correct that. I think it makes a big difference.
And then staying engaged and acknowledging if you messed up, right? Like especially early in our business. I mean, thankfully, we're so blessed that we have so many of our existing customers are from the start, and we probably did not execute the way we wanted to at the very, very beginning, right? But staying engaged with them, having the honest conversation, say, okay, this is where we messed up. This is how we're going to make it right. Here are the steps we're going to take to avoid that from happening again. Again, that builds that trust and relationship. Every dental practice owner also understands that they are not perfect, right? They have mistakes within their practice and their business that they have to correct and rectify. They may have a mishap with a patient scheduling where their team forgot to schedule the patient. The patient's upset. You can't get back. You can't just get upset at the patient. You have to acknowledge, okay, we made this mistake. This is how we're going to prevent it, and this is the accommodation maybe we're going to make for you, right? Very similarly in our business, we had to do that very early on, and thankfully, again, we've established that relationship and trust, and just being honest. I think that, truthfully, one of the books that I absolutely love, and our entire team reads this book. It's Crucial Conversations. I think people sometimes avoid conflict, and in either whether it's professional, personal, whatever it may be, even if it's, you have an issue at booking your hotel room, you need to get something corrected, and something was done incorrectly to you, and maybe unfair. Like, are you confident enough to have that conversation with somebody in a way that is going to be effective, not yelling, not screaming, not cursing, but
Yeah, that
making
always
sure.
works real well. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes for some folks, yelling and screaming does it works well, because then that customer client just wants them out of their business, and the perception is that it works, but it doesn't work because it's not an established reoccurring opportunity, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I found the biggest component for the any entrepreneur kind of jumping in is reading Crucial Conversations and truly understanding how to have difficult conversations with your customers, with your employees. Um, it's not natural. It's something that has to be worked on over time. It goes through experience sharing, right? Actually, I just had this exact conversation with one of our managers and went through the book with her, and the first thing she said was, gosh, this really helps me professionally, but this helps me even more personally, and how I respond to my husband, and how my husband and
Yeah.
I have
Kids,
conversations.
husband. Yeah, absolutely.
I where I would normally get worked up on things, I can now take a step back and organize my thoughts to make sure I'm getting my point across clearly, and we ultimately come to a solution that makes sense for both sides. But I would say that's a big part of doing the hard things, is understanding that we're not all the best communicators, and we have to work at it.
Well, I always say too, Santosh, that probably the greatest accolade you'll get is when you have gone through a difficult time with a customer and you've solved the problem
Yeah,
or you've communicated, and it may not be perfect for anybody at the end,
sure.
but they're always like, you know what? They're real upfront and honest, and they treated me well. Wasn't how I thought it should end, but I'm happy. And I think
Yeah,
that's the key, and that goes back to those having some and doing it quickly, right? Don't let this stuff fester and
yeah,
linger. Just call up and say, "Hey, Santos, something's not going real right with this, partnership. We need to
yep,
talk about it." And I think
yep.
that's the best way to handle it for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I could not agree any more than that. It has to happen quickly, and it has to happen with respect and directness. Right? There's no ambiguity. Like, here's the situation. How do we overcome this? Right?
All right. Well, here's always the big question for anybody who's in business. It
Uh-oh.
is time.
Yes.
And because I can get off this call right now and I've got 3 or 4 things on my desk that I could attack and do, but I have to figure out how I prioritize. And that's
Yep.
my time with my wife. That's my time with my kids, even though they're grown. Time with my prayer life, whatever that is, I have to do that. What do you, if you had to take one thing, what is it you do that helps you prioritize your day, time, week, month, etc.?
I don't have to work less. I can just work differently, right? And so then I signed up to help coach soccer, and it was probably one of the best experiences I've gone through in the last 10 years, right? Like the connection with family, the connection with the fact that I just love to motivate and inspire. And these kids, I mean, they're little, like 5 to 7 years old. So I'm not teaching them to be, messy or anything like that. Like they're not going to be athletes because of me, but I'm inspiring them to love the game, right? And I think that helped me be a better person, better human, better professional.
Yeah, as you say that, my kids are older than yours now, 29 and 27, but I remember that. I remember coaching in sports and not missing certain sporting events. And I think that's right. I had never heard setting like it was a client meeting, but if you do think about that, and then you'd have to ask yourself, is Dr. Smith more important than your son? And you'd have to answer that really honest, right? Like, yeah, wow, that's a tough. I'm not asking you to do this 40 hours a week. I'm just asking you to do it for a couple hours a week, right? As we move along, we want to be encouragers for other people who are entrepreneurs or who are moving through that founding stage, because it's not easy. Most businesses fail, right? I've already had a few that have failed and some successful, and so I think don't be discouraged. I love when I think it was Zig Ziglar said, no, it's John Maxwell says, failure is an event, not a person. And I think you have to remember that. It's just a piece of your life and just keep moving on. So I think if somebody can pick up a little bit of nuggets about how to be this and do this, be an entrepreneur, it's very helpful. So is it Dr. Patel? Oh, we're on first name basis. We'll leave out the doctor. Santosh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining, and great to catch up too. Brother, thank you, man. I really appreciate it too. And we'll definitely catch up. We got events coming up as it is, so we'll catch up there as well. So thanks for joining, and we appreciate everybody tuning in to hear about Santosh as well. Have a great week.